Welcome to the Hidden Orchard podcast, a radical exploration of spirituality, science, and the Bible from a Jewish perspective. Each week we'll look at a new topic and dive deep into the texts that inspire and enrich our lives. So whether you're a seasoned expert or just curious about a topic, there's something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and we'll get to today's episode in a bit. But first, if you haven't done so, visit thehiddenorchard.com and subscribe. It's free, and you'll receive access to content and weekly emails. There you can also subscribe for a paid membership and get access to everything on the site and be the first to hear about online study opportunities where you can meet and interact with other people on the journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have an idea for a topic, reach out to me at thehiddenorchard.com. Now let's get to today's episode. The word heaven often conjures images of paradise, clouds, harps, and maybe a few halos. The predominant assumption for many, an idea almost universal in Christianity, is that heaven is eternal. But those who have begun to study the Jewish tradition have found a set of ideas, possibly a new set of ideas, from Gehenna to the Garden of Eden, the Messianic era, the resurrection of the dead, and of course, the world to come. It can be confusing and difficult to know how to reintegrate these ideas. In this episode, we'll explore this, beginning with the biblical texts, tracing them through their tradition, and putting the pieces back together. There are diagrams available on thehiddenorchard.com if you would like to see them. I'll reference them in this episode, but of course, as always, there's more on the website. Heaven in the Bible. To begin, the Hebrew word often translated as heaven is shemayim. Throughout the texts, heaven represents many ideas. For example, to name a few, stars, planets, and celestial bodies, the place from which blessings come, and an allusion to the otherworldly dwelling place of God. By the late Second Temple era, a phrase like the kingdom of heaven, as seen in Matthew 16:19, may have been used as a circumlocution to avoid pronouncing one of the divine names of God. The Hebrew Bible is not explicit about heaven, at least not in the popular sense, as the final destination of the righteous souls. Rabbinic interpretive methodologies inform us that the word shemayim is a combination of the words fire, aish, and water, mayim, alluding to a paradoxical reality. 7 heavens. A surprising fact for some is that the word shemayim is also plural, literally heavens. Ancient literature thus identifies 7 levels of heaven, each with unique characteristics. In ascending order they are Vilon, Rekia, Shechakim, Zevul, Ma'on, Machon, and Aravot. The first level, Vilon, serves as a veil that facilitates the cycle of darkness to light that we see in a 24-hour period. The second level, Rekia, or firmament, is the location of the stars and celestial bodies. Notably, the third level of heaven is Shechakim. I believe this is the root of the popular understanding of heaven, and we'll explore a few examples in the New Testament. Shechakim is also known by other names in the rabbinic tradition, such as paradise, or the spiritual Garden of Eden. In Hebrew, we pronounce that as Gan Eden. After a person has passed from this existence and has undergone a series of purifications, their souls are said to move on to Gan Eden. Gan Eden is not an everlasting destination. It's a kind of temporary holding place, an intermediate state where righteous souls bask in the radiant peace and revelation of the Creator's light. In Gan Eden, the righteous souls await the future rectification with their physical bodies. This future event is known by the phrase, the resurrection of the dead, and it is also synonymous with the world to come. Gan Eden and Gehenna are spiritual aspects of the present age that we're currently living in, known in Hebrew as the Olam HaBa. Tradition teaches that the Olam HaBa will exist for about 6,000 years before the arrival of the Messianic era. Generally, the Messianic era is not considered part of the Olam HaBa. And though there's discussion as to how long exactly the Messianic era will be, some opinions say a few years to a generation to 1,000 years. Nevertheless, this period of time serves as a transition into the world to come, known as the Olam HaBa. But surprisingly, the world to come is also not the end of the journey itself, as all of creation will continue to undergo continual renewal and elevation. But nevertheless, the world to come is seen as eternal. whereas Gan Eden is not necessarily. The question some might have is whether or not this tradition has anything to do with the New Testament. In fact, it does, and we will look at a few examples of many. Tradition tells us that Gan Eden is comprised of many levels, each corresponding to the level of righteousness one attained in life. It's worth noting here that Gehenna is also taught to have many descending levels, correspondent to the sins one has accrued. The levels of Gan Eden are sometimes referred to as mansions or rooms in the mystical tradition. We actually see a reference to this in John 14. It says, in John 14 verse 2, "In my Father's house are many rooms," or mansions, it says in some translations. "If it were not so, would I have told you that I will go and prepare a place for you?" Jesus also warns in another passage against behaviors that will result in someone attaining only the lowest levels of the kingdom. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And of course, that's Matthew 5:19. And though you can attain the lowest level, in another place, he explains how the lowest level in Gan Eden far surpasses our current reality. In Luke 7:28, Jesus says, "I tell you, among those born of women, none is greater than John. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he." So in accordance with the tradition, Jesus also makes the following statement to one of those who are crucified with him. Luke 23 says, "And he said to him, 'Truly I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise.'" Again, paradise is a reference, a rabbinic term for Gan Eden, the third level of heaven. Also, the Apostle Paul claimed to have visited the third heaven, and this is something we've written about before, and you can find that article on thehiddenorchard.com. Lastly, Gan Eden is mentioned in Revelation. Revelation 2:7 says, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the ecclesia. To the one who conquers, I will grant to eat of the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God." Again, we can see these terms are aligning with the rabbinic tradition, and there are many more references worth exploring. So this leads me to the world to come. Somewhere in the tradition to the world to come, the current structure of reality will be rearranged and reintegrated into its upper spiritual origin. This is the underlying meaning of Jesus' statement in Matthew 24:35, that heaven and earth shall pass away. So it's not that the world is ending, it's just ending as we know it. Though it's taught that Gehenna, also known as hell, will no longer be necessary, and those in Gan Eden will be taken higher. In conclusion, this perspective challenges some popular doctrines of salvation, and of course, the afterlife. It also reframes the future, not as an escape, but as the culmination of divine restoration of the physical and spiritual. This tradition has profound implications for how we live in this present age, that is, the Olam HaBa. The commandments are not tickets to paradise. They're acts of transformation that carry us to higher levels of elevation in this present world. Heaven is not the ultimate goal. Restoration is. This is why the way we spend our time in this world is of such importance in the biblical tradition. As the sages say, this world provides us an opportunity to prepare for the restoration to come. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this topic. Remember, you can find more information at thehiddenorchard.com. If you liked what you heard, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. We don't really engage in marketing, so it's word of mouth and references like that really help spread the word. Also, I want to say thank you to those who subscribe to the site and those who support the Hidden Orchard Project financially. Without you, it wouldn't be possible, so thank you. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.